Vedant.
Thank you, Alok sir, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for everyone who spoke before me for the wonderful knowledge that they've passed on to all of our listeners today. I'd like to share my screen before I get started. I have a small presentation prepared for everyone. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Perfect. So just a little background about myself. As Alok sir said, I finished my undergraduate admissions education last year. I majored in management and entrepreneurship, and I have a minor in consulting. I also have extensive work experience in the finance industry. So over the past 5 years, I have completed over 30 to 40 interviews for various different firms, for universities at the undergraduate level, as well as the graduate level. And I would like to basically sum up all of the knowledge that I have gained about interviewing, the process of interviewing, and I would like to share that information with all of the listeners today. So for everyone's convenience, I have broken down interviewing into 3 main phases. To start off with, we have the preparation phase. Now, this is the phase I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. Some of the things that people think about when they think about the preparation phase would be doing practice questions, doing some basic research about the company or the university that you're going to interview for. But I would like to take this and provide some more detailed information for you to help you prepare appropriately for any interview that you might come across. The first step is to research the company or university you're applying for. This includes having a thorough understanding of the history of the organization, as well as the unique selling point. Most companies that you apply for, or most universities, will have one thing, one aspect that they're very proud of, known as the unique selling point, USP. This could be their product, their service offerings, the culture at the organization, their values. So it's important as an interviewer to know this point before you go into an interview, to be prepared to have any level of meaningful conversation with the interviewer. It's also important to be up to date with the current news of the organization you're applying for, as well as the broader industry yourself. The students in today's seminar might have many different majors, many different fields of study, from commerce to science to medicine to engineering. But regardless of what your field of study is, when you're in an interview, everyone has to go through the same process. Everyone has to apply for the same kinds of interviews. So it's very important, regardless of whether you're applying for an interview position, for an engineering position or a commerce position, to know the industry that you're applying for, to know the company that you're applying to, or the university or program that you're applying to. Which leads me to the second point. Research the actual position and the specific program that you're applying to. You need to have a good understanding of the roles and requirements of what you might be doing for the next year, for next 2 years, next 5 years, however long your program might be. And another step is to learn about the interviews and the type of interview if possible. Now, the people before me have mentioned studying through COVID, how the world has changed from mostly in-person to virtual to a hybrid system now. So if you go through your interviews, you might have some that are in person, you might have some that are online, you might have some that are on Zoom or some through a phone call. So there's many different types of interviews you have. For an in-person interview, you can have a formal interview in an office setting, you can have an informal interview in a coffee shop. So it's important before you go into any kind of interview to prepare properly, to have a good understanding of what kind of interview you're going for, and also knowing who you will interview with. If you already have the names or the details of the person you're interviewing with, it's important to do a quick search on them online, to know what their background is, to know what they're like, so you can cater your preparations to that person to help you successfully complete the interviews. The next point I'll talk about is conducting mock interviews. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with this point. It's practicing questions and answers beforehand. Everyone does this. Everyone will Google search how to succeed in an interview, what kind of questions to prepare for. And this is a very important step because this will help you answer questions with more fluidity, with more confidence. And it's not just about answering questions, but you also have to be able to ask questions of the interviewer, because that shows your level of interest, that shows your level of knowledge, and it shows your level of engagement with the company that you're applying for or the university that you're applying to. You have to be able to think outside the box in this phase. You should also be able to practice your non-verbal communication. If you're sitting in person during an interview and you're not making direct eye contact, if you're looking away, people will think you're shy, you're not confident, you don't have the ability to interact appropriately. If you're over a Zoom call and you don't make direct eye contact, or if your hands are moving around constantly, it might seem distracting. So you have to be aware of that too. You should also prepare your resume properly, dress appropriately for the interview, and have a good understanding of your resume as well as yourself. The next phase is the execution of the interview itself. When you go into an interview, if you're interviewing in person, you should have a firm handshake. If you're over Zoom, you should constantly maintain eye contact, as I said before, and maintain positive body language. Try not to cross your legs or your arms. Try not to close yourself off to an interviewer. Be open and be engaging with them. You should pay very careful attention and listen carefully to everything the interviewer says, and make note of anything you find that might be important information to use later on. If you don't understand something, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask, as this shows that you are engaged and you have an interest in what the interviewer is saying to you. When you're asked questions, be sure to stick to the point and answer the questions concisely. You always need to know that they will ask you questions that you are not prepared for. They will ask you questions that you might not know how to answer. In the past, I have been asked questions such as, what would your worst enemy say about you? Or if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? What is your favorite kind of food? These are not the kinds of questions you might expect in a formal job interview, but they're unexpected and they might be thrown out to see how you react on the spot. So make sure that when you prepare for an interview, you prepare for the unexpected. As a part of this, do not regurgitate your resume. The interviewers already have your resume. They already have the basic information about you. So be prepared to present additional information about yourself, new information to speak to your character and the kind of person you are. At the end of the interview, make sure that you always ask meaningful and relevant questions to the interviewer to show that you have an understanding of the organization that you are applying to, and to show that you are interested in the actual position itself. And remember to breathe and stay calm. The more nervous you get, the more you stutter, the more mistakes that you might make. So remain calm and try and focus on the conversation that you have with the interviewer. The final phase, and I'll go over this very quickly, is the follow-up. Many people might not know about the follow-up phase of the interview, which happens once the interview is complete. In this phase, you have to ask for the interviewer's contact information, and within 24 hours of the interview, you have to send a follow-up email, not only to thank the interviewer for their time, but also to re-express your interest in the position of the program that you have applied to, as well as highlighting key points of interest that you learned during the interview. Interesting thing that the interviewer told you about that you might not previously know about. This is where you bring it up to show that you have paid attention, to show that you have expressed interest, and to show that you are an engaged and clever individual who can pick up on points very quickly. This also helps you create a personal connection with the interviewer, reminds them of who you are, and allows you to make a longer lasting impression that can help you finish successfully. In this point, it's always important to know that not every interview will be successful. Sometimes you might be accepted, sometimes you might be rejected, but you need to know that you should not be demoralized. Every interview is an excellent learning opportunity. Make sure to ask the interviewer about their opinions and their impressions of you, and take that as a learning opportunity for the future, because every chance you get, you should improve for the next interview to come. There will always be more opportunities. Thank you for your time. My name was Vedant Kumar, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.